Alright, I got my Carrie shirt on, so you know what that means. Everything that we missed in Carrie, Part 2. Welcome back to BG's Books. I'm Mr. BG, and today I will be continuing my series for everything that we missed in Carrie. So, about a month ago at this point, I made a video, which was the first video in everything we missed in Carrie, and while I thought I got everything, I realized I forgot a few things, because there are quite a few things that are interesting, or kind of continuity breaking, or whatever in Carrie, Stephen King's first book. So anyway, while I covered most of the stuff in that first video, there are a couple of things that I did not mention in this video, which I will be clearing up right here. So this will definitely be the last video for things that we missed in Carrie, because I read the book again for an 8th time.
Addict.
I know that makes me like some sort of like addict or something, as to what my editor is implying. But anyway, I read Carrie for the 8th time, and I discovered some things that didn't quite make a lot of sense, or some things I forgot to mention in the first video, and so I will be mentioning those here. Anyway, so yeah, this will be quite a bit of a shorter video because there's not much stuff to mention, but we will go ahead and get right into it anyway. So the first one is the fact that there is a scene where Carrie mentions that her mother does not allow her to have a pillow on her bed. I don't know how you're going to be able to sleep without that, because that's very uncomfortable. But anyway, Carrie is not allowed to have a pillow on her bed for whatever reason. But yet there's also a scene later where Margaret White finds a picture of a guy under Carrie's pillow. Yeah, where did that come from? I thought pillows weren't allowed. Again, that's another continuity error. Carrie is just filled with them, as evidenced by the first video, but I don't know, that's just one of the most egregious ones, I guess. It hardly comes up, but I just think it's kind of weird that Carrie isn't allowed to have a pillow, but all of a sudden was one time busted for having a picture of a guy under her pillow. Anyway, that's a lot of weird stuff. Anyway, and so I believe that the final continuity error in this book, I know there are a lot of them, but I believe this is the last one, is the fact that Carrie had a neighbor back in the 60s named Estelle Horan, or Stella Horan for short. You know, she was the neighbor that was sunbathing topless by accident when Carrie found her and stuff, and so she had a whole story about that. But then later at the prom, when the prom is going up in flames, we hear that another student at the prom was named Estelle Horan. Now, full disclosure, I am very aware that many people have the same exact name. Names are kind of hard to make original anymore. So the fact that there's like 2 people in the world named Estelle Horan isn't surprising. But what is surprising is that both of them lived in Chamberlain around the same time, possibly, and that they both like went to the same school, knew the same people, sort of thing. It's like again, I'm not saying that it's weird that they have the same name. It's weird that they have the same name while being in the same exact town, in the same exact place, around the same time frame. Estelle Horan, the neighbor, was in the 60s, and Estelle Horan, the prom goer, was in the 70s. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting that there's 2 Estelle Horans, even though we already clearly had another established one that got out of Chamberlain like when she was 20, and then we have this other one that's at prom in 79. So I just thought that was interesting. There are 2 Estelle Horans. There's a couple name drops in this book. Like, I'm sure you all remember the Bob Dylan quotes in there, the Bob Dylan song excerpts. And so, of course, there are a couple of those in there. I'm sure you all know about those. But what I'm particularly interested in is that Stephen King basically name drops himself in there twice. Yeah, so early on in the book, it's mentioned that Carrie had passed in a poetry assignment given by her middle school English teacher, whose name was Edwin King. And for anyone who doesn't know, Edwin is Stephen King's middle name. So basically put his middle name and his last name and just gave it to a teacher. So I thought that was pretty fun. That's pretty interesting, actually. And then furthermore, there is a teacher at Chamberlain with a name of Mr. Stevens, with a PH, like how Stephen King spells his name. So, yeah, very interesting. Stephen King basically puts himself into his book twice as teachers, which is even funnier because Stephen King was an English teacher in real life before his writing career took off. So I just thought that was very interesting. And yeah. And so yeah, that's it for the Stephen King references. But two other name references I think are interesting is that one is that I mentioned that Carrie had a guy's picture under her pillow that seemed to exist but not exist at the same time. And that picture was of a guy named Flash Bobby Pickett. And so Flash isn't really worth anything, but Bobby Pickett is actually the guy who sang the Monster Mash song back in the 50s or whatever it was, maybe the 60s, I don't know. So yeah, Stephen King put the guy who made the Monster Mash into his horror book, which I thought was pretty funny in an indirect way, I guess I could say. And then for one last thing, when Carrie's at the prom, someone asks her what's her secret to be glowing at prom because, you know, she never looked like that before. And then she says that she is Don McLean's secret lover. And then, of course, Don McLean made the song American Pie, which is very famous. It's about, like, loss and music and stuff. I guess it's sort of symbolic to the Carrie book or something. But you're like, Mr. BG, the movie came out after the book. And yes, I know that, but Stephen King actually sort of predicted the movie's existence somehow. And I'm going to explain why. So all throughout the book, we see quite a few magazine articles or interviews or what have you. And then one of those magazines is The Shadow Exploded, which basically covers like telekinesis, Carrie herself, and then all this stuff. And then it happens to mention the pages 74 through 76. 74, of course, being the year Carrie was released, and then 76 being the year the movie was released. So I just thought that was interesting. That's not really tied to the movie at all. I just thought it was interesting that pages 74 through 76 were the exact like numbers of the book and movie's release dates. I just thought that was funny. But for a more explicit calling of the movie, that would actually come from Sue Snell's book, My Name is Susan Snell. And she mentions that they finally made a movie about Carrie and that she saw it last April. But what's funny is that she says that movies are made about subjects that will be forgotten to time by moviegoers that don't really care about Carrie the person. I just think that's kind of ironic because, you know, of course, the movie that came out was a very famous movie. It's still remembered today. It's still loved today. And Stephen King even prefers it to his own book. But I just thought it's funny that in the book, he mentions that the movie was just kind of shallow and not very well made and was only made so that people could forget Carrie faster. While in real life, the movie is very much alive and is actually why most people know Carrie today. So I just thought that was interesting. But yeah, guys, that is the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing even more things that we missed in Carrie. So yeah, I really had a fun time making this video. Of course, when I read Carrie for the 8th time, I found a couple things that I didn't remember the first time around. But I hope I got all of them in this video. I'm pretty sure I did. But if I did miss anything, I will make a comment down below saying what I missed. So I will address it. But anyway, yeah, please let me know any interesting things you found in books. Not necessarily Carrie, but Carrie is, of course, always welcome here at BG's Books. But, so yeah, anyway, that is the end of the video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below if you have not already. I've been Mr. BG, this has been BG's Books, and I will see you guys in the next video.